Well, welcome to another episode of the Daily Combat Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Stockbridge. Joining me here today is MC Izzy.
What's up?
That's Isabella Rossitana to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Of course, we've just had Ryan Bowen on the podcast, and so we're very fortunately joined by two of my friends here from the Arm Wrestling Association, the SA Titans. So Roman Rockwell.
Howdy.
And Matthew Hollywood Connolly, who is a regular on the program. So, we've just had Ryan Bowen on, and what were your thoughts, Roman? I mean, this is it's interesting to see somebody who's built their entire career almost through online. It started early and straight away started documenting.
Yeah, it was interesting. To hear him talk about the early stages with the transitions from, the military and stuff like that, and how he was that invested in arm wrestling from that early on, and how the content creation followed and the YouTube channel started and all that. Yeah, very interesting.
Very, very, very inspiring. I know, Izzy, you were really taken by the dietary requirements of a professional arm wrestler there.
I definitely was, upon discovering that he's eating 1.5 kilograms of specifically red meat. I mean, I've always actually tried more in my more recent times to have more like kind of white meat and fish for my sport. So if, this guy's obviously trying that out, that kind of inspires me to do more research, and I'd love to. What he said that really got me, which is another part of my performance, was he had always wondered, how would my performance change if I finally get my nutrition right? And I definitely acknowledge, especially in recent times, I've been consuming a large amount of Haig's Rocky Road. In fact, my diet's, definitely more free than it ever used to be. So I've always wondered that myself as well, because I used to be straight on the opposite side. I was strict as hell.
Yeah.
Now I'm on the opposite end. I'm like, what about if I actually team up with a proper sports nutritionist and see how that changes my performance?
So when you're at the Australian Institute and you're preparing for the Olympics, do you have people guiding you with diet?
Yeah, we did a bit, which was always like good and helpful. So I'm really grateful for that and that opportunity. I think the best stuff I found out was through research and kind of reaching out to sports-specific nutritionists. So the one who I'm would love to work with in the future is the Fight Dietitian, who's really great for UFC and boxing athletes to cut weight. So I look forward to hopefully working with someone at that level one day. But what about you guys? I'd be really interested in your opinions and your experiences as arm wrestlers. What do you think optimum nutrition looks like for an arm wrestler?
Well, it really depends on whether or not what sort of weight class you're looking at, where that sort of thing would come into it being a big factor. If you're looking at, your 85 and below, or your 80 kilo and below sort of classes, and you're sitting around, 90 or something like that, it's like, well, if a competition's coming up, I've got to make sure that I'm, dropping those kilos so I can compete. Or, what sort of weight cutting am I going to do to get into that?
What type of weight classes are typical in arm wrestling? So
and for women too.
Yeah.
I think the ones we ran at the Apex one with the real tournament was 75 and below, 95 and below, and 95 and above.
Right.
So we just did 3 classes. The reason we did it that way was because we could have more competitors in each class, as opposed to having a lot of classes and having 3 or 4 people. It's like, well, let's make a big class and make it really competitive. So if you do place, you do well, you really earned it. It's like, well, there was 25 people in this class and I came 6th. Like, I'm happy with that, as opposed to 4 people in the class and you got 4th.
And is that normal? Is that are those weight categories normal across the sport?
For some reason, it seems to be that the state tournaments have a different weight class to the national tournament. I'm not sure exactly what the reason is, but it's like, I think it's like 75s, 95s and above for states, and then it's like 75s, 85s, and 100 plus or something. There is a difference in the national competition. I'm not sure why that is, but it should be uniform. I'm not sure what the reason they've gone with it for that.
Sorry.
What about internationally? What are the international arm wrestling weights for men and for women?
I think with the European ones where it has more of a following and more competitors, you're looking at weight classes maybe every 5 or 10 kilos across the board, starting at, maybe like 55 kilos going up to, your 100, 110 plus kind of thing.
Wow.
Because they have enough competitors to support that. So you wouldn't want to thin out the divisions by having so many divisions and, having minimal competitors. And that's why we did, just 3 classes for us because, originally our tournament was just going to be a club tournament. But then we got the opportunity to get on board, thanks to Dave and Craig Ike at Diamondback Fights. We got onto the Apex event and we had competitors coming in from all over the country. So we were able to put on an event where, we've got maybe, I think there was about 40, 50 people that actually competed. And it was like, we just want to put it across 3 weight classes. That way you've got, say 20 people, 25 people in that class. And as I said before, when you place well, if you win the class or if you do well, you really earned it because you had to beat multiple people to get there as opposed to 1 or 2. And the victory just wouldn't be as worth it.
Definitely.
And I know that Roman is really big on the supplementation side of things. So it's not just the food, though. What are some of the supplements that kind of help with arm wrestling?
Definitely joint supplements.
Yeah.
Pretty obvious. But for me, it's just inflammation control. Making sure the diet and supplement inflammation control is really important.
Yeah. And how does that red meat philosophy of Ryan's kind of go into
because I heard that causes inflammation the other day.
Yeah.
So tell us.
So listening to Ryan, watching Devon eat his pancakes, for me it's red flags everywhere. But I am on the end of the spectrum that is very, very niche. It's not I struggle to listen to that kind of, for me it's all green, plant-based and that kind of thing. I do eat my meat, but... Yeah, it's very minimal.
What exactly, can you tell us exactly kind of what your diet looks like and what your supplements look like?
Yeah. So a lot of green smoothies, grow my own vegetables.
Nice.
Just try to get that organic, vegetables from the markets and whatnot. Just incorporate as much turmeric as possible in your diet.
Yeah, I need to get back on the turmeric.
I know.
I need to get back on the turmeric.
I really bang on about the turmeric.
Yeah, it's been a while since I had me some turmeric.
One of our inside jokes is Roman and his turmeric. And,
really?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it comes up anytime Roman posts in our group chat. It's there'll be turmeric comments flowing afterwards.
It's a performance enhancer.
Yeah. I mean, it comes from the upbringing I had and just trying to push to people that, yes, sometimes there is a need for, doctors and medication and that, but a lot of the things you can fix with, these natural things that most people have.
Turmeric being one of the main ones, I guess.
Well, you were saying with turmeric that it showed better results than your standard Panadols and Nurofen sort of thing.
Wow.
So I don't know in which setting that is in. It's just a quick Google search, turmeric versus ibuprofen or something like that, and I think a quick thing comes up. But if you're giving your body to heal, giving it a chance to heal naturally, turmeric's like your best friend in that environment. And everyone knows the ibuprofen and all that. I'm on them right now because of my knee, but they can have adverse effects taken in large quantities.
Absolutely, for sure.
I'm definitely going to buy some turmeric. Definitely. I'm going to have it tonight, thanks to you.
Everyone, I think everyone at the club
sold me on the turmeric. You should be sponsored by turmeric. I really mean that. So what else? I personally, I've been on the beetroot supplements recently, and I swear to God, they are great.
What's behind the beetroot?
Well, let me tell you. There was a lot
I'm glad you asked.
I'm so glad you asked me that question. I might love beetroot supplements as much as Roman loves the turmeric.
Okay.
So there was a lot of research about, actually initially it was beetroot juice taken before rowing. It was amongst so I think it was even an Australian Olympic rowing, the men's team. they performed way better, and it helps you aerobically somehow. It is a massive antioxidant, which is a great thing for today's society, especially, which I'm pretty big on. But the weirdest thing is, I noticed as soon as I only started taking these, so I went for the dried powder, like little tablet things, because I don't like beetroot juice myself. Also, it's a big investment, whereas just to get like this, container. Anyway, I actually improved a lot my running. I just felt like a lot more. I really mean that. I was like, the only thing I really changed was this beetroot.
Do you think that's why they have it on Whoppers and Aussie Burgers? Like, do you
I think that's the only reason.
It helps. No, really, I'm big on beetroot now. Absolutely, and I'm getting my antioxidants in as well. So
yeah,
Incredible.
Another interesting thing about beetroot is I've
purple?
only don't eat too much or something else turns purple. But the spinach, the beetroot leaves have more iron than spinach leaves. So you can,
maybe that's it. I'm getting more energy. I wonder if I'm getting some iron. That could well be it, actually. That'd make a lot of sense. Yeah.
Tell us about your knee injury. You're a concreter by trade, and it's something called Tyler's knee.
Yeah, so it's called prepatellar bursitis.
Oh.
So inflammation of the kneecap, full of fluid. Really, really painful. So I tried everything I could naturally, but
the turmeric wasn't enough.
And you can believe I took a lot of it.
Maybe
when the turmeric isn't enough, you've done a very serious injury.
Yeah, so I had to revert to medication, and funny enough, it's done the trick. So.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, speedy recovery then.
Yeah.
Roman is also a very good arm wrestler, despite only being into the sport for maybe 9 months. You reckon? This is the man. I think on the first episode we were talking about.
That's right. You were crying.
I was.
That's right,
That was me. Yeah, that's the cause of it right here. We were talking about a match that I had to sort of focus on just tactics and not emotion, because Roman had beaten me at the Apex tournament, which for me was a surprise. I wasn't expecting it, and you won fairly. You were definitely the better man that day. And then we had a super match, and the back of my mind, it was, I think we'd actually only agreed to it that day.
Yeah.
It was like,
but Matt was preparing for it for months.
That's right.
This is the thing. When I put it out there that Tyler had pulled out, I wanted to have a super match, so I put it out to the group, and in the back of my head, I'm like, I wonder if Matt will put his name up. Because I'd been mentally preparing for Matt to challenge him at the end of the year, because I just didn't put myself in that league yet. I didn't forget about Apex, but.
Well, as it turns out, neither did Matt.
But the day in itself, and anything could have happened, but a proper super match at your own club, and Matt has been doing it longer, and I just didn't think I was ready, but I was eager when Matt did accept, and I took a lot from it, and I'm really happy with the outcome. So
yeah, for sure. It was a 3-1 victory for myself, but it was still very close, and I think. Luckily, the rules of arm wrestling allow me to slip without being penalised, because the first round and I think the third round, you had me completely dead to rights, and I was forced to slip out of that position because I was this close to losing. But fantastic to see that you've come up so quickly. And then we agreed to the match. I think 6 hours before it happened. And then the next 6 hours, my mind was, and that's where I said I have to focus on tactics and making sure that I just think about the actions I need to take to get the victory, as opposed to the emotion, which was, what if you lose? It's going to be horrible. This guy's only been doing it for a few months. It's going to be bad.
Well, not only that, but he's about 20 kilos lighter as well. So,
that's right.
Just rubbing it in.
So this is one of the interesting things, and what Ryan was just touching on. He was suggesting that his next opponent will be Schoolboy, who's 6'3", 6'4", 265 pounds, and Ryan's maybe 220-ish, thereabouts at the moment. So there's a huge discrepancy in size, height, weight, structure. Why do you think it is that in this type of strength sport, where you might think that all of that strength's highly localized, that those measurements don't seem to matter as much?
For me, it's been like how you feel on the day. I've come to training thinking I feel amazing, and then I pull someone and instant pain, or you're just not as strong as you feel. In Ryan's case with Schoolboy, I mean, I wouldn't even know how to compare the two, given what we've seen so far. I think Ryan's right. I think it'll be a match worth watching. Definitely. I don't think it's going to be easily decided one way or the other.
I think being able to access your strength. So if you've got a weight advantage, but you don't know how to use it, or the opponent is able to keep you away from being able to access that, it becomes irrelevant. Like, you could have somebody that is literally 40, 50 kilos heavier than you, stronger than you, but if you know how to keep them out of being able to access that strength and that weight advantage, then it's mitigated. It doesn't exist. So if you've got people that are in different weight classes, I mean, that's what Ryan, Ryan's confident in his wrist, he's confident in his technique, and to the point where he's mentally going, well, the weight doesn't matter. You can have a weight advantage. I'm still confident that I can do the things that I need to do to mitigate your strength over me or your advantage over me.
I think what you bring to the table as well on the day. One of the things I noticed when I did start competing and stuff, coming up against Matt, I felt very on par with the aura of the table. We grip up to the same sort of thing. At Apex, when I faced off against Tim, his first pull of the day, left arm, under 95s, I thought he was going to kill me. He was so jacked up. He was so pumped, yelling and everything. And I'm like, oh, wow, I just want to survive this.
I don't want to play anymore.
I didn't want to do this.
Yeah, it was funny. We had a impromptu super match with it was me and Tim the other week, and I think it worked to my advantage that he hadn't mentally built up to it, because usually he does really fire up and go ballistic in terms of psyching himself up for the match. Yelling and getting really into the mode, and then walking straight up to the table, putting his arm down, ready to he's in your face, ready to destroy you. Because I just said, oh, do you want to do let's do it. Okay, great. And we were just, straight into it, and we were laughing, and, his beard, my hand kept touching his beard, which I thought was bad, and then he kept doing it deliberately.
That's a new tactic we haven't seen in the arm wrestling field before. I might have to start working on mine.
Yeah, there you go. That's right. Just wear a fake one. But no, so it might have had an effect, because I think the opposite, where he does really fire himself up, it might have a boost for himself, to get. I mean, that's what Matt Mask says. That's why he goes so crazy, because he feels. He said, I think 20% stronger if he does get himself in that place where he's super aggressive and the veins popping out of his neck, and he's red-faced, and he's, as furious as he can be, that he feels that gives him a massive advantage over being calm and, someone like John Brzenk or somebody who can just casually walk up and defeat anybody in the world. Yeah. But, I think for that super match for me and Tim, that was an advantage. Maybe it was a sneaky tactic. You could jump on that. Next time you're like, Tim, let's just go. We haven't got time. Get up here.
They have to be impromptu in order to get the edge.
That's right. But it was funny. At the state tournament a couple of years ago, Tim was getting himself in that frame of mind. He was firing up, and he wears glasses, and he was sort of whipped his head quickly. The glasses went flying, and without hesitation, he just snatched them out of the air and kept them on. Didn't reference it whatsoever.
Oh, wow, that's pretty epic.
Everyone in the crowd was like, okay.
I think we found our winner.
Yeah. That's good. Have you had that, like, if you've gone with your super match or in a if you're a training session, you're like, I really want to get this happening, and have you had a frame of mind where you're like, I'm going to fire up, or there's a moment where you've gone, this is a thought, I'm going to get into this process to step up and be in this frame of mind?
I've given a little bit of thought to it, and my sense is that I'm pretty casual at the table, and I think for me it's won and lost in the moment I touch the other guy's hand. Your hand, I don't feel your hand's much bigger, but I feel like there's hope You know, some even though there isn't, but I feel like there is some hope.
It's gentler.
And
Kinda.
yeah, and so you know, there's some guys that I think are stronger than me, but because I think that there's some hope, I find a way. And then there's other guys that I don't think are as strong as me, and but I find them awkward to work with. So you know, it's seemingly for me, it's all in that setup, the first few moments, but. The psyching up side of things, it's not so much a thing for me. I like to think of myself as maybe a bit more of a counterpuncher in that I feel the hand, I feel where there might be a little away, and then if there is, great, and if there isn't, I'll capitulate early, because the risk of injury in a super match is super high. You know, it's all you got to do is move slightly the wrong way, and you can be carrying an injury for another month. And so I'd rather kind of feel it, and if I don't feel it's there, we'll just let it go.
You get a lot of self-talk in between rounds or leading up to it. You know,
No, I try to focus on my breathing as much as anything. You know, I think there is a propensity to hold your breath, especially when you're under tension, and if you hold your breath for any length of time whilst exerting yourself, obviously you're going to deplete pretty quickly. So I really think about just oxygenating rather than mentally. I think it's a little bit different to say like in boxing or some of those more combative combat sports where the fear of death is always upon you.
I love that. It's my favourite type of fear. It keeps me going every day, if I'm perfectly honest. That's what drives me.
Keeps you sharp.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't have that fear coming to the table, so it in that way. And so if the guy on the other side is like, psyched up, well, there's no threat of violence, you know, in the same way. Whereas, you know, if somebody's coming to you in the ring and you can see that they're just a little bit more jacked than you are, then you can kind of go, hang on, this can be, okay, well, I'm in it now, you know. So I don't think I psych myself up in any particular way. I try to prepare as best I can, and try and be injury free in the lead up to it, and try and enjoy the moment.
Do you have that with boxing? Do you have like a self talk that, you know, you've got this, you can do this, you know, whether those doubts creep in and it's just, no, I'm not listening to you. This is maybe just me. I have full on conversations.
I love that. You should. I was going to say record them, but you can't really do that.
You can do your own podcast with yourself.
I'd listen to that. Well, it's really interesting because I just completed a subject for my university degree, which was sports psychology. And obviously with, you know, getting psyched before any sport, you can actually be, there's like a great graph, a bell graph, where you can be under psyched, or, you know, you're not at all.
Maybe that's my problem.
Yeah, no, you can be. So for an event, you obviously want to get it right in the optimum. So we're looking at like a bell curve where if you're over psyched or too psyched up, for some sports, that's not what you want. For me, when I previously did canoeing, I think in my first 2 years, that really stuffed me up. Canoeing's very obviously some sports are different, every sport's different, but it was very technical, and I would be so psyched up. I'd listen to, you know, really heavy kind of like electronic motivational music. I'd be jumping up and down. I'd be psyched like that, and but then when I got to the start, I'd be very shaky, and that meant my start wasn't as quick as it could be. But we never had a conversation with anyone really about what are you thinking and what are you doing right before your race. But I kind of did my own research, and that evolved. And towards the end, I was dancing, just like getting really relaxed, just listening to my favorite tunes, having a dance. Like I love dancing as a warm up.
Right.
And whether that will extend into my boxing, I mean, it would be probably great for viewership if I do. A bit similar to the blonde bomber, Ebony Bridges, doing something funny like that. You know, you know, really dancing was fun. But also, I wouldn't listen to. Maybe a bit earlier in the day, I would listen to my more motivational things like my favourite Muhammad Ali speeches or Rocky. Then I would listen to my favourite music, but I definitely would not be listening to the same sort of music that I would approach a heavy aerobic workout with, you know, which would be that thing that really pumps you up and jakes you up but it also, as I said before, for boxing, I probably would want to be a bit more psyched up than I would for canoeing. I had to really be. And I only discovered that later in my career, which is obviously when I went my fastest, was I had to actually be in a more in the zone, relaxed and ready mindset, as opposed to, for example, if I'm trying to attack a monster, you know, training session, I have to be really psyched up and like I'm going to give this everything. So that was quite interesting because I would have assumed before all my study and everything that you do want to be as psyched up as possible. Yeah. What about you two? So what do you do before? So you said self-talk. So that was something that we talked about a lot in my degree. Was self-talk can be used quite positively. Obviously, it can be negative for some people if they aren't able to escape the negative cycle and that sort of thing. But sounds like that's something that you use.
Yeah, it's just the way my mind works. I thought everyone did this until my wife said, "No, you're crazy." No. I have two voices going at all times.
Two?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is one good and one bad?
No.
Do they have names?
They're both me. They're both me, but
Okay.
it's a conversation, and it's like, "What do you think about this? Like, what do you think that was good? No, should we do that? Yeah, maybe we could do this. What do you think about that?" And then if there's a competition or there's something there, and that negative sort of thought might come in. And then it's like, no, that's silly. Don't tell me about that. I don't want to hear about that.
Well, that's good that it's, that it stops. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they alternate in terms of being the controlling subpersonality. So you've got these two voices that represent. Do they represent anything in particular?
They're both me in terms of the same personality, but it's just that when I'm thinking about doing something or that there is a conversation, my thought process is a conversation.
I kind of know what you're saying. Oh, I just know, like, for me, for example, sometimes, like, if my coach is saying, like, put your head into it, like, with a jab, like, use your power, then in my head I'm saying, all right, I'm going to use my power. Like, all right, let's go into it.
Yes.
Let's do this.
Yeah.
And that's what's really, that is really common in athletes. It was really interesting to read. Like, there was something about basketballers. I wouldn't be able to reference that one. But there were just things like, oh, I missed that shot, but this time I'm going to make it. Like, let's go, it's game time. I actually asked a number of people because I was doing something that was going to require a lot of mental, I guess, resilience and perseverance. So I asked a number of athletes, what do you think? And my physio, she's a basketballer and a netballer as well. And she said, what was it? It was something great like, all right, let's go. Oh, let's fuck shit up. Let's fuck shit up. So that's a new phrase, which I quite like to include when I'm doing something like, all right, let's fuck shit up.
It's a good one for boxing.
It is.
I think maybe it's for people that are in individual pursuits, or it's like, if you're going into it doesn't have to be a physical competition, but even say a job interview or a podcast or something like that, where this is the way I deal with this situation. I'm going to have this conversation, but it's very supportive in terms of the way I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think very positively and get the job done. Do you think that maybe that's like an introverted sort of personality or that people would rely on their own conversation as opposed to having to talk to other people to get,
Well, I think those conversations are going on in most people's minds, but they don't associate them with distinctly different voices.
Okay.
So
you're getting worried now, are you?
Don't worry.
Medication.
I won't be on this podcast again.
No, it's a tool. It's a tool for positive psychology.
Which matter we talking to, right? Yeah, but very definitely it is that tool. I guess if you're conscious of that and you're aware of it and you can understand how to leverage it and be in control of it, it's different. But otherwise it's mental illness, isn't it? Or it's a form of it.
Yeah. No, I mean,
because if you're not in control of it, it creates disease and
Well, for all the athletes I coach, as I've mentioned before, I've always seen it as a tool. It is. Self-talk is a tool. Like, you use it to your advantage. I think we're only just now coming into a time where for athletes and for everyone, like now corporate people are really interested in it. We're seeing the importance of mindset, which to me, from pretty early in my life, that's what I had, and that's what I was working on, and that's what motivational videos got me. That it was all I used to listen to them, and I listened to them.
I listen to them every day. I listen to it on the way here.
Yeah, I love it. No, I really think that's what made me as determined in everything as I am. Was the amount I just listen. It's probably absorbed into my skull and my brain. But my point being. That it's something every athlete should be using. And in the times where I haven't been as successful in my sport, my self-talk was especially towards probably the middle when I've had a number of injuries. I didn't feel like I was supported. Well, I definitely had no positive feedback. I didn't have anyone saying, good work, how's training going, or anything like that, the worst part. And my self-talk was crap. I can remember one day getting in the boat after coming back from injury and feeling like that. And my self-talk was, why am I here? In my head, I was paddling and I'm looking at the, my ex-teammate and my coach. And I'm thinking, wait, what am I actually doing here? Like, they don't want me here. I'm not wanted here. Like, I'm doing, I've just come back from an injury and I tried my hardest and no one's actually said, well done. No one's told me, hey, good work at all. And I've just fucking, I can't walk. It hurts me to walk.
And start to build that up in your head.
Yeah, and it was so negative. And then it becomes a negative cycle. And that's now, having done this subject, I realized all of this stuff a lot more. And so that's been quite interesting. But it's definitely something like, for example, in an arm wrestle, I like, you want to be thinking like, all right, I'm going to take you down. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And yeah, but it'd be interesting. What about you? What do you do before, or what psychological things do you use?
So I suppose on the drive to training, I don't like to think about it too much the day before or whatnot. Definitely driving to training, like with Matt's match. You got to put yourself in a mindset. You got to start thinking about your strengths and where you have maybe beaten that person in that situation before. My match with Tyler, that's meant to be Sunday, I've beaten him on quite a few occasions. I had a lot of confidence going in to our match. It's been postponed so many times now, but having slow pulled him on a number of occasions now before our match, that confidence is gone. He's bridged that gap between us. His wrist and arm are so strong now. I'm psyching myself out of the match. So
so you've got to change that mentality in a way.
Yeah,
you
do.
Really do, yeah.
And a suggestion I would have would be the best thing that I took in my study, which actually helped me for fighting as my favourite fight, my first fight with a 6'3" guy, which was so much fun. Was your thoughts. Just remember, as an athlete, your thoughts become your feelings, become your performance. So if you're thinking, start thinking, this guy, so I think you said technically, or he's bigger, or he's just one more, he's more experienced, or?
No, he's bigger, he's quite a bit stronger. Where I've had the advantage is with my wrist and hand, and slow pulling him last week, I felt that he's really improved in that area, and it's going to be a real battle,
a tough one.
Yeah.
So you have to find what's another advantage you have, or start thinking. Start thinking, oh well, he was better then. Maybe he's more tired. Maybe he's fatigued. Or there's a different technique I can find that I can perfect. Yeah, and then start thinking more positively, and then feeling more positive, and then that's going to affect your performance. But those three things leading on to each other is really stuck and ingrained in my mind, and it's helped me a lot, actually, I think, since doing that and learning that.
Your thoughts become your reality. And,
they do.
Yeah, it's such an important thing that a lot of people don't look into it. They don't think about it. And you see people that have depression or they have anxiety, and it's just that spiral of negative thoughts. And it's like, if you're able to turn that into instead of listening to those negative thoughts, to try to turn it around, and it's like, and then that becomes sort of a skill and a muscle that you have to build and work on. Going into scary things or new things that you're not going to be comfortable with, and doing it regularly allows you to, build that confidence of, well, I was worried to do that, but I got through it and succeeded. Or, even if I didn't succeed, I still went and did it. And then the next time I do it, it's not going to be as scary, as worrying. So, I mean, I did a lot of acting stuff, and it was like, you'd get
Hollywood.
That's it. So you'd be handed a script, like 6-page dialogue. It might be a monologue, so it's just you talking. 10 minutes before you've got to go in front of 3 cameras and 10 people all sitting there, and you walk
judging you,
and you've had 10 minutes to remember it. You can't use it in the scene. As soon as you walk in, okay, just down on the X there. There's the camera. You're going to use it there, and there you go,
action.
And you're like, fuck. So if you were doing that for your first time, the adrenaline is going, your hands are trembling, your voice is shaking, you're thinking too much about what are they thinking of me or whatever. Over time and experience and having done it enough to the point where you could be like, I don't care who's here. You could have 1 million people here. I don't.
Yeah.
I'm going to do my thing, and that's what I'm going to do. And put a camera here. I don't care. It's not going to affect me. I'm still going to do my thing. And it's only through experience and time doing it that you could build those skills. And it's like those translate to other areas of your life. It's like, okay, well, that was scary, but these are the things I did to get over it. And it's like, well, this thing is scary, but I'm going to do the same techniques. And that's why I listen to that motivation stuff, and that's why you've got your healthy stuff that all compounds. It's like if you're eating healthy, you're working out, you're doing positive things in your life, you're talking to people that inspire you, or that sort of thing. It all compounds and creates like a really positive atmosphere. Whereas if you're doing the opposite, if you're not looking after your body, you're not looking after your health, nutrition, you're feeling tired all the time. You go to a job that you absolutely despise. You get home, you're arguing with people, and it's just that spiral of negativity that you're not going to be getting results. And then if you do get an opportunity where it's like, hey, come and audition for this thing, and you've had that as your central focus, and it's like going into that room, you're probably more likely to fail and not remember the lines, not do the character, not be able to perform it to your ability. So it all sort of focuses into one thing.
100%. And on that, I think a really big thing to take is, for some people, like, if you don't have any positive support, like having positive support is huge in sporting success and also in general mental well-being. But something I found, which I think is absolutely fantastic, is if you're not able to have that positivity around you, and if you're not able to move into a positive environment, you can actually find that, and a lot of motivational speakers say this, find it through movies, through podcasts. I know a really good one called the Daily Combat Podcast myself. I love to listen to it. And, through music and through, fictional and real characters that inspire you. So for anyone, if you don't have access to that positive environment, you can still find it.
That's
make
right,
it yourself. Yeah.
Look at Rocky and how many how many people have gone into boxing or even fitness or anything, and it's like this guy, the character.
They just hear the trumpets in the
That's
background.
Right. I put it on when I'm in the gym.
It's on a lot of my playlists.
If you're doing cardio, it's dangerous stuff, because you'll go way harder than you should.
Well, I think growth's always on the other side of our discomfort, and putting ourselves into those situations there are challenges to us. Invariably, they're the things that make us better people. And overlaying that, production is the source of morale. So there are a lot of people that do struggle with mental illness and have blockages in that way. But the best way to move forward is to become productive. And I really took that away from Ryan, our interview with Ryan just a little bit earlier, because even with all the haters, even with all the negative comments, all the pushback, and everybody telling him he didn't deserve his spot in the arm wrestling world, he spent 4.5 years taking that shit because he was being productive. He was doing that thing that he loved, and he knew that every step was a step closer to his goal, even if others couldn't see where that goal was or what that goal represented. So yeah, I think there's a lot to be taken from that. And to anybody that hasn't listened to that particular podcast yet or hasn't watched it, well, they can certainly do that by tuning into the Daily Combat Podcast. Subscribe if you haven't already, of course. So on behalf of the whole team, thanks so much for joining us again on the Daily Combat Podcast, and we'll look forward to bringing you a whole lot more next time.